The significance and impact of video games on modern culture cannot be understated. The history of video games is brief but dense, and every day the potential of the medium expands. In the beginning, video games were nothing more than pixelated novelties and momentary distractions. But with the growing popularity of arcades and eventually home gaming, video games became a staple in American culture. The video game industry saw many ups and downs in the early days of its inception, but it is now experiencing exponential growth that doesn't appear to be letting up anytime soon. With such social influence comes social responsibility, and in recent years, many have made calls for more diverse stories and representation in gaming. Our story begins at the 1940 World's Fair, where a computer created by Edward U. Condon and programmed to play a simple matchstick game, Nim, is on display. The computer is only beaten 10% of the time. This was the first time a computer was programmed for amusement. The first video games as we know it were invented at MIT in 1962. They were invented using a very advanced, circular 10-inch display screen on which graduate students played Space Invaders. We encounter video games as a commercial success with Pong a decade later, created by founders of Atari, Nolan Bushnell and Al Alcorn. This ushered in an era of massive profitability for the industry, and empowered the company to release a home version of Pong in 1975, and later the Atari 2600 in 1977. For this information and more, go to museumofplay.org. In the last decades of the 20th century, games rose in complexity and adopted the stories and characters. Games evolved from simple puzzles that required nothing more than precise timing to interactive and immersive stories. Part of what helped to make games more immersive was the development of graphic technology from 8-bit to 16-bit to 32-bit and so on. Characters developed personalities. They became more realistic, to the point where they looked like real people, and not just pixels. Players became invested not only in the characters they were playing as, but in the characters they were playing with and against. As Mario, you felt like the hero saving Peach from the evil Bowser. Video games had not always been an economic success, though. In the 80s, Atari went bankrupt and crashed the whole gaming industry. The Atari crash of 1983 was brought on by a number of factors. Because the industry was so profitable, Atari was trying to crank out a large quantity of games without focusing on quality. They also tried to turn arcade games like Pac-Man into Atari games with little success. In Atari's haste to make the holiday rush, they published the demo of Pac-Man rather than waiting for the bugs to be worked out. The game was a failure. They did this again with the release of the infamous E.T. game of 1982. Legends say that this game was so bad that Atari buried all of the extra copies in a landfill. Those games were actually found in 2013 in a landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico. A 2014 documentary, Atari Game Over, directed by Zach Penn, covers this excavation. Some claim that this game single-handedly brought down the industry, but it only accentuated a greater problem. By the end of 1983, Atari had lost over $500 million. They were completely bankrupt. This caused businesses to lose faith in console gaming. They thought that it would be too much of a risk to carry them on their shelves. They thought that home computers would eventually replace console gaming for their ability to not only play games, but do useful things like word processing. Nintendo saved the day in 1985 by calling their original console an entertainment system and not a video game console. They also included Rob, a toy robot. This set Nintendo apart from failed brands like Atari and made businesses feel like Nintendo's entertainment system was a safer investment. You can watch Video Games the Movie, directed by Jeremy Sneed, to see video games from Space Invaders evolve to the present. Men are not the only people who play video games. They aren't even the majority. So why is it that so many new games being released feature the same hackneyed white male characters and tropes? YouTuber Anita Sarkeesian, aka Feminist Frequency, came under fire for discussing this very topic in her series beginning in 2012, Tropes vs. Women in Video Games. The alleged controversy arose when she was criticized for getting too much money from her Kickstarter campaign, a crowdfunding website, that she used to fund the series. Her opponents claimed that she was stealing from her fans and not producing enough content in return. Excuse me. The amount of online harassment and death threats Sarkeesian has received is excessive, and only serves to further her message that the gaming community has not been a welcoming environment to women in the past decades. Anita Sarkeesian's public attention has not been all bad. The industry has listened to her simple plea for more dynamic female representation in games, and in 2014, she was awarded the Game Developer's Choice Ambassador Award for advancing the industry. For more information regarding Sarkeesian's impact, you can visit feministfrequency.com, or for her death threats, her Twitter account. The significance and impact of video games on modern culture cannot be understated. The industry of video games and its history is brief but dense, and every day the potential of the medium expands. Video games have become incredibly complex over the past years, and new games have achieved an air of realism akin to the Hellenistic period of Greek sculpture. Video games have become a facet of everyday life. The apps on your phone, the console in your living room, Farmville on Facebook. Like movies or TV or the internet, the industry deserves our respect as an art form. Thank you.